Alright, well, this is going right along. I've just been here maybe 2 hours between setting up and running out to get some fuel for the gas saw. I had to laugh at this. I'll probably post it on Instagram. I don't know what. I mean, those are like 3.5-inch nails at least to put the roof deck on with. So they just must have been really concerned about. I mean, this is the point where, to me, I don't know what they did here, because this is a new roof deck. So basically, they were down to the rotten rafters, which they chose to sister, but the sisters barely get to the ledger in a lot of cases. And I don't know, it just seems to me that you'd reframe this roof quick, rather than just adding to those. I mean, I guess it saves you a little bit of demo, but, well, regardless, it's all going bye-bye now. Anyway, another couple hours here to the end of the day. We'll have a full day pulling this roof system off. I may not get as far down as I wanted, just because 2 guys here would go a lot quicker. I am standing on the ladder and carefully on the ceiling joists here and there to tap up from below with the hammer, because if this was even just ring shank and they were 2-inch nails or something, it would be a little bit of a fight. Thankfully, it's not ring shank, but holy smokes, are those nails long. So I have to drive it off the surface of the rafter at least 2 inches before it starts getting to a point where I can come back out here and yank on it to lift. So, not the end of the world, but anyway, moving right along. All right, well, it's 5. I probably started over here today, noonish or something, give or take an hour. First part of my day was just getting my tools pulled and loaded and into the site and unloaded. I don't know if I said this already, but I think it's obvious that this room was on here since the construction of the house. This is an original porch roof system, at least. It's very likely they didn't replace the bottom of it, the floor system, and that's in keeping with the type of the tongue and groove, probably yellow pine that's on it. But the biggest part of that decision, or deciding that, feeling comfortable with that, is the lack of finish pointing on this area of the chimney, as well as the missing siding, which may or may not have been something that someone removed when they put the roof on here. But there's no house wrap, obviously. There's vinyl on the house, so if you weren't able to get in anywhere and check, you may wonder whether somebody house wrapped it. It's likely that they didn't. And the shoulders of the chimney are not even, there's no block on them to keep water running down and away or anything. So we're going to need an interim solution here so that deluge sandstorms don't drive water in. And I mean, it's not the end of the world, because we know the project is a finite length, but I'll do what I can for them there. Starting with probably trying to leave the flashing that's on it to kick stuff out and away. And then I may even just make a notched piece of plywood, slip it in, and screw up into what's left of what's up there, and just make a weird little roof thing that hangs out over top of it to just keep it out of the way for now. So we need a big long bar here. Roofers and stuff have more appropriate pry bars. This is just like a Burke bar, Essential Craftsman would call it, or whatever, but or a linesman type of a thing. That's more for digging in the ground, etc. But it is a rigid steel bar that's long enough to get some serious leverage here, and that's really all that I needed. Those long nails and stuff, I just started to feel it in my shoulders. You don't be destroying yourself. I mean, this demolition seems like, they always show it on the HGTV, like they come in and start swinging a sledgehammer and making, my dad would say, toothpicks out of everything. And a lot of this little pieces and shit, to be honest with you, fell out from on top of the ceiling, like the Tim Hortons cup and the bird's mouth pattern was just laying up there, which ended up being what they put on the end of all the rafters, and then they just threw it up there. Like, I could pretend to imagine it was like a kindness. Really, it's just throwing trash up there, just like the rest of this. Like I said, that old Tim Hortons cup and whatever. What was my point? Being kind to yourself. Taking things apart the way that they were put together. I didn't strip all the shingles off and then take the sheets of plywood all up. I tried to cut with the demo saw where the plywood seam was, basically, and took the sheets off in 4x4s, because once you have shingles on there, that's more than twice what a full sheet of plywood weighs, just because of the shingle on there. Anyway, and I tried to get them up and flipped and let them falling over, rip them off the rest of the way. Everything that you can do to use gravity and stuff to your advantage. And the long bar, in the end, I ran and got from the shop because it just made real easy work of basically hanging my body weight out on this, rolling over this beam, and flipping up the edge that I didn't want to go out and set up 1,000 times with the ladder. I've been in the market for an orchard ladder, which is a 3-legged ladder, the front like this, and then one pole on the other side, which is so nice for working on the ground. Because 4 points on an uneven surface just never seem to sit flat. And so I hesitated to go out there with the ladder, go up to the top of it on a wiggly, messed up surface out here, and fight with getting the sheets off the rafter tip. So anyway, I was able to reach over in there and pry them up. Then I flipped the sheet up, and on its way around, it ripped itself free and fell off around the ground. Nothing that people that do this all the time don't know already, but within a day here, we'll be down to the floor surface. These walls I will smash right off of here. I may leave the front wall on because I got to contend with this electrical service, and I'd like to be able to take everything out from underneath it over here and just basically pull it down and over this way and rip it off the wall, which is how I got the rafters out of here. I let their weight, after I got them out, after I cut a few short so they could fall down in here and rip the high end off the wall. And then when there's enough space, you can start to go so far to the side that they'll clear and they'll fall down in here. And on their way down, they rip the nails out of the wall and end up just standing up real nice and neat on the other side. I am playing with fire here, trying not to break a window out of this door, but I've been okay about it. If we were sparing no expense and I had extra guys, I might have brought a sheet of plywood for over that during this process, but it's really kind of at the end of its life. And there's a door or two figured into this project, a full replacement with a new man door. And so that might become one of the places where we do that. Anyway, and so, I'd love to do that. And if it doesn't need to happen, that's one thing. But if it ended up needing to happen, it's not the end of the world. So come back and look when we're a little farther along. Okay, I wanted to be a little further than this. I wanted to be ends and corner posts down. I just wanted just the lower deck here, but the nails were extra long, and it would have been nice to have a helper. I guess I spent an hour getting between the couple times that I stopped and chose to clean up and put everything in the dumpster. When you've got that going on all the time and someone can just give you a hand here or there, or vice versa, sometimes I'll just clean up and leave somebody to get serious and burn energy if I don't feel like it, which is a nice part of being two guys. Anyway, pretty content. It's at 6 p.m. or something, a little afterward. So, 6 hours on the site, a couple hours this morning, reconnoiter, getting tools out, getting tools into the site, getting set up, running out to get the bar once or whatever. So just as give you a sense of what can happen in how much time. Taking things apart goes a lot quicker than putting things back together again, that's for sure. And like I said, this was here since the house was built, most likely because we start with at least one floor's worth of chimney as you get one floor built, and then you keep going and get the second floor built, and just use the home, usually use it as your scaffold to get higher and higher with the brick. Makes the most sense. Maybe they didn't do that, but either way, I don't know why they didn't just point that and make it look nice right there. It's like, what a I mean, someone knows what they're doing. As far as the brick on here, it looks like a pretty good job. And even where it's been exposed, it doesn't need to be repointed and stuff. Maybe the top is getting a little bad, but I don't know. I'm just not the type of person to just leave things look shitty like that. So anyway, nowadays a lot of times we do think ahead and we'll stick a kitchen island over the current flooring or the new flooring or whatever with just a couple screws, so if people want to move it or something they can. But back in the day, they didn't really have the renovation mindset because the renovation scene hadn't really happened yet. So thinking in terms of what if people want to expose more chimney and stuff one day wasn't part of their thinking. So tomorrow we'll actually kick this beam off of this post, and I expected it to just dips a little bit. I knew it wouldn't fall right off of there because we've got triangulation here and that going on, but it didn't dip at all, and actually I hung on it and couldn't get it to do anything. So I'm gonna wait until I'm fresh tomorrow to wrestle with these bad boys and kick them off of there, and then smash the lattice off. I'm gonna try and get the boards off the surface of the floor system. I think it's wildly too heavy with those on top of it, and then at that point it's like, I think it'll be obvious that it makes the most sense to just take all the joists out by cutting them off the rim and packing them all up in a group and setting them down somewhere else. There's really not that much to save in terms of work, you know. If they come back and put a deck here someday, I don't even know that they'll make it out of that lumber, but they do want to hang on to it. So that's that. The wheelbarrow, that ought to go right into the dumpster. It's shot. I'll ask before I do that, but the little triangulation block or whatever here, that shim block that keeps the belly of it up off of the framework at the right angle, that's obviously roasted. And, you know, trying to be careful about air. I don't want a big fluffy load. It's a waste of volume. When I start seeing the end of this finite amount of time that we paid for with the dumpster, if we're nowhere near the top or something, or only halfway, then I'll be a little bit more fast and loose about loading it up. So that was day one on site. Time to go home. Taco Tuesday. Back tomorrow. Probably clean that up right down to the ground, poke it in the dumpster, set it aside, and then try not to forget. Like this tree he doesn't care about, and I think I'll probably go out and get a chainsaw and just take him off and some other small things here. Clean up these limbs. We may have said this before, but the electrical service, I was looking today, I made an Instagram post about when we did this to my parents' house. We used the same operation, and like I was 10 years old, but in the photographs, so if you want to see some pictures of back in the day, I posted them today, but in the photographs, you can see the electrical service still goes over to my parents' house when it's in the air. And so that's a different township and stuff like that. But I think that we can do that, although I'm seeing things like this here, where the branch is like rubbing on the pole, and there's like a confluence of fuckery right there. And so I may just go up, and this is just stuff that we're doing before it's ready to lift. And I can't go digging right into the basement and taking their furnace and stuff away because it's still pretty chipper. I mean, it's not even the end of March, a couple more days yet. So I want to get here and be, you know, feeling good. It's also going to be, I think, spring break, second half of spring break for a lot of schools is the week before or right around about. So we want to be ready for them to come and lift. And so I might want to dip out of town for a couple days because Miss Merrill will be on vacation and stuff. So anyway, we'll do things up front, get them out of our face. Ooh, we got our signage there. We'll make sure that we're sitting pretty, and then we'll start and lift this bad boy off the ground. And then we'll remember that one thing that we forgot to do, and we'll have to hustle to get it done. I just can't think of what it is yet. Can you guys? All right, we'll see. Bit of a blustery day today, but it's just been an hour or two on site today getting these end walls off. I ended up just cutting from the top down through until it sort of buckled, and the outside in this way, the outside half of it fell on the ground. I threw that into the dumpster, and then the inboard, I should have said outboard, inboard half of it attached to the house still just went side to side until it just fell down real nice. And I'm going to leave this much roof around. I should have probably had the forethought. I didn't realize while I was cutting that I might want to leave it over, so I may have to do a little addition there. But essentially the flashing, the transition to the roof deck material plywood, and the trim and finish to the existing construction is all still on the house. It could have been a little bit bigger to protect the shoulders of the chimney, which I'll have to do a little something about still. However, we'll just leave it like that. And then if we are going to come back and do some kind of construction operation out here, maybe we will just set, you know, I even left the ledger. So if you put, you know, if you want to literally rebuild this or something very similar, you can set new rafter tips up on your ledger and put them all back up underneath like that, and put a fresh edge on that plywood. You would have to clean the shingles off, but the flashing could stay. And then you could just start with plywood and go, and then you could just do new shingles right up onto the current flashing, and you wouldn't have to get into the siding and flashing operations or flash around this chimney again. It wouldn't be much better than it ever was, but the way that it was keeping things dry, since this, like we said, is original construction. It was working for 100 years or something. So just trying to put our best foot forward here so there isn't a ton of cost to get back to where we were before. And so today, well now, I'm going to start taking up this first board was rotten, floorboard. So he made a good, you know, he broke into pieces. The second one, it wasn't much better. And now we're into perfectly good from here to the other end. Maybe that last one is a little bit questionable again. But now I'm going to try to carefully get into a conventional method of popping these up without breaking off the tongue or groove. And if they're coming up, we'll bundle them. Ed and I, Ed cleaned the nails out of the soffit or the ceiling wainscot. I cleaned the nails out, pulled them out with dikes, and we used shrink wrap to weather protect them and set them out back. Sorry, I want to do the work, and then I get to the end of the day and I realize I haven't covered much of the process at all. If I get video, I don't get still photography. If I get still photography, I forget video. You would think one would make sure I remember to do the other, but it's not the case. It's just so much going on. Okay, this is going right along smoothly. Ed's pulling the nails for us. I'm just standing in the floor bay, kind of in the middle. And I don't know if I need to, I don't know. The typical crowbar is working real nice. Just every place that I can sit it on a joist and pull a little, sit it on a joist and pull, sit it on a joist and pull, right out to the very end. You'll have tear out there. But with a cell phone and one hand, I can kind of get this to come up. A lot of people, just simple skills. A lot of people want to drive the pry bar in, and to start with, you're probably going to hit a nail given the frequency, and they're all tipped back in your direction, and you end up fighting with that scenario. And so when I can, I will sit the shoulder of the hook onto a framing member, but I'll just work out in space here as it makes sense to do so. Anyway, a little bit of tipping them, maybe to like 30 or not even 45 degrees. Yeah, certainly not 45 degrees, 20 or 30 degrees up off the framing, and then a couple wiggles and they come right out. Anyway, I don't know what I was thinking before. I should have known when I saw the piers that are cast clearly with the helical lines from sonotube or cardboard tube on them. I should have known that something isn't original here, because that wasn't the technology that we had before 20 years ago, or 30, I guess at the most, depending on your region. Maybe a little more than that. So anyway, but certainly not in the off-the-shelf at, you know, there wouldn't have been a Lowe's or Home Depot here 20 years ago or more. It would have been value, whatever. Anyway, somebody knew what they were doing here. They notched a 6x6 down to a 4x4 to set these on. They knew what they're doing insofar that they got that done. But I've always been able to see that we've got a problem like that. But I was also standing around in here and this kept collapsing and collapsing and collapsing on me. So I reached over and just gave this guy a little kick. And he's quite obviously just loose in there. And so the backfilling operations weren't good, or there's been water. It's very dry under here, and for water to get under here, it'd have to go through the floor, so I doubt there's been water to that extent that wash it out. But if it's wet enough for the frost to heave it, it can do something like that a little bit. But mostly it's just a bad job of setting that or something. So what I have to imagine happened is that the roof system that's original, as we discussed, was propped up from outside on the ground. Everything else was demoed out because it failed. The conditions of its rafters were so bad that it failed, and it rotted out here to the point where this was shit. And so if it rotted out here, it probably rotted the surface. So this isn't original surface, nor is it original framing, obviously. And then whatever foundation it had before, somebody came in here where there's nothing. They saw fit to add some piers randomly. This one kind of here, that one kind of over there. There's like no rhyme or reason to them. This one right next to the house for some reason. And then they have hangers on here. It's another indication of its vintage. Although there's no hanger there, there's hangers here. Anyway, they framed this, and then they got this tongue and groove yellow pine and they put that down. And this was all probably before the house was re-sided, because it's well underneath there. But it's just, there's a lot of work here. But I think it was probably somebody who does a lot of this, but doesn't know the kind of poor work that they're doing vis-a-vis this situation here. So they were very comfortable doing it, and it probably looked really good when they got done. But like the quality of their filling the form is piss poor. either rushed or something here. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. And we'll just finish up clearing this off. And then I see that the 4x4, it is a 4x4, at least in this corner, that's framed down into the corner. And so we'll figure out whether this is just going to get hacked off or dismantled and set aside. Because I'm going to start taking this apart. I'd like to take this all apart today and get it off all the way down to the house ledger. So we'll see how far we get. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Oh, we found a little furry friend.
I think it's gotta be Rocky.
We think it's Rocky. We had one growing up. It was always in one of the barn windows, and he stood up flat because when they lay down to die, obviously he's flat. So we called him Leather Kitty. He was, and then later when I was, so that was my dad found him before I was born, and Leather Kitty was always in the window. But I found Leather Mouse. When I was a kid, I found a little dry mouse, and I put him up Leather Kitty and Leather Mouse. So we can bury him on another day, but we got this taken apart today, so the porch is officially gone. We found a 1985 Maker's Mark here, so that means that's when that was. Yeah, they did this together, okay. And so they replaced just the floor, I think. So I was telling Ed, the bad mortar, or the unfinished mortar that's there, is because they always knew when they built the chimney that you'd never see that because there'd be a roof here. So if there was going to be a roof here, that means the room was always here. So it must have been your brother and your dad fixed the floor here because it must have gotten so bad that the water rotted it. So they fixed their floor and they fixed the roof. When the skid steer comes, I will pull out these old concrete piers like teeth, and we can roll them over somewhere in the bushes or throw them in the dumpster if it's still here. So not bad. Two work days and it's all gone. Things always go quicker when you're taking them apart versus putting them together.
Take a snapshot of this and send it to me, right?
Yeah.
Or someone did and
Yeah. Send some stills to you for you? Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you.